All right, everybody. So you have built an SOP. Now what? Hello, my name is Michael Cruz, and I appreciate you for subscribing to my newsletter. And I want to talk to you about how important it is to have SOPs. I know that's all I talk about, and people can get annoyed by it. But the reason why I'm such a big fan of it is because it really creates consistency, and it brings accountability to the organization, and it helps build and deliver a better experience for every single client, no matter who picks up the phone or answers an email. And they really make training a lot easier. You know, when you onboard an employee and you give them, clarity in terms of what they're supposed to do, it really helps them with the ownership, and it helps your business scale. And there's one of the most, key steps that people miss about SOPs is that it's not about just creating these perfect SOPs, but eventually they break down, right? Eventually some people don't follow it, and that's just the reality of it. That's why a lot of people, start, they get excited and they stop, But if you really think about companies like Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, or McDonald's, why they're so popular is because you're going to get the same experience, no matter where you go. We've all had the time where we had to go grab a coffee, and we know if you go to McDonald's or Starbucks, it's going to be quick. It's going to be the same experience. Chick-fil-A for lunch. And this is not an accident. That's how SOPs are in action. That's what allows them to deliver a consistent service, every single day, But the truth is, SOPs alone are not enough. You cannot just create it and hope people follow it. You need to make sure that they're being followed. And that's one of the hardest parts that I would say about SOPs that people struggle with. This is where most people get stuck. They have no way and no system of following up. And you've put in all this work in building this SOP, and you've done a great job, doing it. But if you never check it, and you alone don't make sure people are following it, it's kind of a waste, That's why I want to introduce you to a concept that I learned from the great Dr. Billy Williams. And if you haven't checked him out, check out his website at inspirenation.org. And he calls it spot checking. And it's basically, spot checking means, is basically you're going to block out time. Block out time in your calendar, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly. You decide the cadence that you want to implement. And you're going to review whether your team is following an SOP or not. And I've done this recently with my sales process. I block out time to listen to calls, make sure that, they're actually following my sales process. And it's not about micromanaging. It's about confirming that your system is working as intended. So what's the point of creating an SOP if you're not really confirming that it's being followed? And let me tell you, the first few spot checks, I'm going to tell you, very straightforward. It's going to be a little cringy, and it's going to be frustrating because people are not following the process, and that's where you're going to find the gaps, and that's where the coaching happens. And you'll realize that you thought what was happening is not happening, and that's where the magic happens. That's why it's so important just not creating SOPs. You need to take the time to verify, coach, and adjust to make sure that, when you create these beautiful SOPs, that they actually come to life and that they're being followed, So I hope that this is helpful. That's when I really want to help you move your business from good to great. This is why I'm such a big believer in this SOPs. So I want to challenge you, not only build an SOP, but, set up a spot check time, whether it's weekly or monthly, and spot check your team, and then set the time to do a one-on-one and give them that coaching in terms of what you found. Don't just focus on what they need to improve, but also what they're doing well. But make sure you do set that time to spot check, as you roll out an SOP to make sure that they're being followed. Thank you very much.